Alright, so in today's segment, we're primarily going to be focusing on what is on the map. This is going to include the games and the secrets that are available. Now, let's just get started off with the bottom first cell. Now, this cell is pretty cool because it actually has two secrets in one. One of the secrets is going to lead outside, and then one of the secrets is going to lead underneath armory. Now, this is a very important secret for CTs to know too, because this is the primary way that Ts rebel. Now, there's also going to be a USP that's available to Ts. All they have to do is press E on the toy chest, and then they get it, and then they can shoot up some CTs. So just be very aware. Alright, so the next secrets that we're going to focus on are going to be on the top cells. Now, there's a deagle that's in the cell that is closest to armory. The only thing that the T has to do is press E on the light fixture, and then press E on the toilet, and they get a deagle with 7 bullets. And then there's another secret at the very end of the cell block, which leads outside to the soccer area. All they have to do is shoot out the bars, jump through the window, and they can make it outside. Now, there's one more secret in the cell block area. It's going to be against the wall. You're going to need to crouch, and there you go. Now, the pull secrets are really cool because they're interconnected to a lot of things on the map. It's connected to colors, it's connected to 4 corners, the disco stairwell, and the LR room. Now, there's also a USP in here, in this nice little turbine room. Now, you're going to notice some Ts will actually shoot out both vents, and it's going to confuse some CTs, but they're usually going to take the path of less resistance and use the LR room escape. And not only because it's really easy to use, but there's also a deagle in there, which I'll show you later. Now, we're going to move on to the armory door in the soccer escape. Now, some people get confused and they'll just press E everywhere, but all they got to do is press E on the very top and it lets them right in. So the soccer escape's at the very end of the fence. All you do is shoot it open. There's a USP in there. You can shoot open the other side and you're out. Alright, so let's go over some of the guns and the colors escape. Now, this map is literally littered with guns. There are 2 shotguns in the back of the truck. There's an MP5 in each one of the guard towers, the tall ones that are on the edges of the map. And then there's another short, stubby guard tower that's connected to the main cells, which houses a FAMAS. Now, keep in mind that each of the guard tower guns only has about 1 clip in it, but that's usually all you need. Now, the colors escape, you're going to end up drowning, but all you got to do is break it open, you're out, and you're free. So let's go over some of the hidden gun cases in the kitchen escape. Now, the gun cases can be seen when you're in no clip spectate, but let's just go over a couple. All you got to do is press E on this little corner here, you get a free USP. There's actually one more gun case on this map, and it has another USP. It's by the kitchen window. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to line yourself up with the kitchen window and then just press E on the ground and you get another one. Now, the kitchen escape, there's one there, and then there's one through the vending machine. Now, there are a couple more secrets that I'm going to need to go over. There's a kitchen grenade, there's a gun and medic, disco secrets, 4 corners escape, and then there's a gun toss deagle. So you press E on the bottom vending machine, you get a grenade. Now, there's a USP on the bookshelf, and now the disco actually has a couple secrets. Now, if you go over here and you press E right underneath the speaker, it opens up this little compartment and you get another USP. There's also a bunch of grenades that are in the bathroom stalls. And then there's an escape at the very end that leads out to where colors is. Now, this is pretty cool. Just make sure you don't get doored. And then you can go back in the main cells if you really want. Now, here's the 4 corners. It's kind of like colors, except it's more randomized. There's not really a lot of skill base to it. And then you can break open a vent, and then you can end up in that cool pull vent again. And then here's that deagle that I didn't show you earlier. Alright, so I'm going to go over some of the games that are actually on the map that you can play. There's colors, or Simon Says, whatever you want to call it. T's follow the colors. If they don't, they're just going to, fall down into that pit and drown. Now, the next game is volleyball. Basically, you split them into teams, set the number of points. The team that makes it to the number of points lives, the other team dies. So the next game that I'm going to go over is Duck Hunt. Essentially, you have Ts jump off one at a time and then have your CTs either fire at them with a secondary or a primary one time. If they are using a scoped weapon, they're not allowed to scope because that makes it too easy and that's not very sportsmanlike. So, the next game would be Race. Now, you don't have to do this in a designated area or anything. You just set start and end points and name prizes. Tell them first person that gets there gets a prize or last person there dies. Pretty simple. Dodgeball is really easy. Set them up in the goal, shoot a ball at them, they live, they die, they die. Now here's a cool game you can do in Disco. It's called Lava Floor. Basically, T's avoid the red squares or they take damage. The green square, I believe, heals them, and you can set the difficulty of the game to the number of green squares you want. I highly recommend only using one square so it doesn't take forever. There's also quite a good music selection on this map, a bunch of different stuff. But keep in mind that there are a lot of secrets and ways to escape, so you want to set up your CTs in a way that this is safe to do to get to LR. Alright, so now we're going to go over some of the games in the LR room. Now there's Bunny Hop. It's a very simple course. Essentially the first T that completes it lives and the one that doesn't dies. Then we also have Tic-Tac-Toe. You want to keep in mind that some of these games you don't play because they kill population. Next up is going to be Gun Toss and Gun Golf. Just make sure you empty out the deagles beforehand or you're going to have a very bad time. Gun Golf, furthest wins or shortest wins, just specify beforehand, and then Gun Golf is closest to the hole. Pretty self-explanatory. Next up is going to be Four Corners. Four Corners, I explained it a little bit earlier. It's basically colors, except it's not randomized. If they fall into the hole, they're KOS. If they live, they live. They go in the hole, shoot them before they go through the vent. Okay? Also, there's Russian roulette on this map. Essentially, one T presses the button, the other one dies. It's a pretty fun game, for me at least. Now again, you don't have to do this in a designated area, but it's kind of cool to do it in the fighting ring. Essentially, it's a 1v1 knife fight between a T and a CT, which are picked through trivia. But just don't do it with like 20 people dead waiting to play, because that's really not cool at all. Alright, water relay. It's essentially the same thing as race. You set prizes beforehand. The only difference is you can tell who wins because these little lights at the end turn red. Alright, moving on. Basketball. Pretty self-explanatory. Split them into teams, set points. The team who gets the number of points specified lives, the other team dies. Alright, this is the last game I'm going over. It's cliffhanger or parkour. Essentially, you set a course, you have them put their flashlights towards the ceiling, and then jump to the destination. If they fall down, they die. If they live, they get LR. Really simple. Anyways, basically this is everything on the map. You're only really limited to your creativity. Please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe.
Great.
It makes me shiver.
Looks like a fucking period baby.